the night of December 24th, 1945, Christmas Eve, a fire tore through the Sodder family home in West Virginia. George and Jenny Sodder escaped with 4 of their 9 children. The other 5 were never seen again. No remains were found in the ashes. No bones, no teeth, nothing. The fire was ruled accidental. The case was closed. But for the next 50 years, the Sodder family put up billboards along the highway with their children's faces, because they believed, with everything they had, that their children did not die that night. This is the Sodder children mystery, and it remains unsolved to this day. George Sodder was an Italian immigrant who had built a modest but stable life in West Virginia. He and his wife Jenny had 10 children. On Christmas Eve 1945, 9 of them were home. It was a cold night. The children had been excited. Christmas was hours away. The older kids stayed up late. George and Jenny went to bed first. Sometime around 1 in the morning, Jenny woke to the smell of smoke. The house was on fire. George and Jenny and 4 of their children managed to escape. But 5 of their children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny Jr. and Betty, were trapped inside. George tried to get back in. He couldn't. The fire was moving too fast. He tried to use the ladder to reach the upper windows. The ladder was gone. He tried to drive his truck beneath the window to climb up. Both trucks wouldn't start, despite working perfectly the day before. By the time firefighters arrived, the house had burned to the ground. The 5 children were never found. Here is where the story stops making sense. Anomaly 1. No human remains. The fire burned hot and fast, but even in the most intense house fires, investigators expect to find something: bones, teeth, some biological trace. In the Sodder case, nothing was found. Investigators concluded the fire was simply too hot. But George Sodder refused to accept this. He later hired a professional cremator who told him it would take temperatures far beyond a typical house fire, sustained for hours, to completely incinerate 5 human bodies, including bones. Anomaly 2. The phone line was cut. When Jenny Sodder woke up and tried to call for help, the phone was dead. The line had been severed, not burned. Investigators found the line had been cut cleanly before the fire started. Someone had disabled it. Anomaly 3. The ladder was missing. George kept a ladder stored on the side of the house specifically for emergencies. On the night of the fire, it was gone. It was later found in a ditch about 75 feet away from the home. No explanation was ever given. Anomaly 4. Both trucks wouldn't start. George had driven both trucks the day before. They were in working condition. On the night of the fire, neither would start, not even to use as a platform to reach the upper windows. A mechanic later found that the fuel lines on both trucks had been tampered with. 4 things that point away from accident. The police saw it differently. The case was ruled accidental and closed within months. But here is what made the Sodder family certain their children had survived. On the night of the fire, multiple witnesses reported seeing children in a passing car. A woman named Mrs. Cilento was driving home from a party late on Christmas Eve. She saw a car speed past her heading north. She noticed children in the back seat, pressing their faces against the glass. She thought it was strange. It was nearly 1 a.m. on Christmas Eve. She didn't know about the fire until the next morning. Another witness, a hotel owner, reported that a group of children and several adults checked into her motel early on Christmas morning. She later said the children matched the descriptions of the Sodder children. She did not come forward until years later. A third witness saw a young girl matching the description of one of the Sodder daughters being held by an unfamiliar woman outside a restaurant several towns away in the days after the fire. The investigators dismissed each sighting. Jenny Sodder did not. She began compiling the accounts herself. She contacted newspapers. She put up billboards. For decades, a billboard stood on Route 16 in West Virginia, showing photographs of her 5 missing children and a message that read, "Do you know them? Call this number." 22 years after the fire, Jenny Sodder received a letter in the mail. There was no return address, no explanation, no name. Inside was a single photograph of a young man. On the back, 4 words were written. Louis Sodder, I love, brother. Jenny believed it was her son. The man in the photo bore a striking resemblance to what Louis would have looked like at that age. She showed it to family members. They agreed. The letter was handed to the FBI. Investigators attempted to trace it. They found nothing. The origin of the letter was never determined. The man in the photograph was never identified. Jenny Sodder kept that photograph until the day she died in 1989. She never stopped believing her children were alive. So what actually happened to the Sodder children? There are 3 theories that investigators and researchers have proposed over the decades. Theory 1. The children died in the fire and no remains were found due to the intensity of the blaze. This is the official conclusion. Some fire experts support it, noting that certain conditions, particularly the rapid collapse of the structure and extreme localized heat, can, in rare cases, destroy biological material almost completely. Critics of the theory point to the cut phone line, the missing ladder, and the tempered trucks as evidence the fire was not a simple accident. Theory 2. The children were abducted before or during the fire by individuals connected to a man named Fernand Sodder. Years before the fire, George Sodder had made public statements criticizing the Italian dictator Benito Mussolini. Some researchers believe this drew the attention of an Italian organized crime figure who had previously threatened George. In the weeks before the fire, a stranger had visited the home and made an unusual remark about the house's wiring, saying it would cause a fire someday. The stranger was never identified. Theory 3. The fire was deliberately set as a distraction, and the children were taken alive. This theory holds that the fire was set intentionally to cover the abduction of the 5 children. The cut phone line, missing ladder, and tempered trucks were meant to prevent rescue. This would explain why no remains were found, because the children were never in the fire at all. Investigators have never formally pursued theories 2 or 3. The case has never been reopened. The 5 Sodder children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny Jr., and Betty, were never officially declared dead. George Sodder died in 1968, still convinced his children had been taken. Jenny died in 1989, having spent over 40 years seeking answers. The billboard they built on Route 16 stood for decades. It was only taken down after Jenny's death. Some of the surviving Sodder siblings continued to push for a reinvestigation. In 2021, a skeletal examination of fragments found at the site decades earlier provided no conclusive evidence either way. No arrest was ever made. No suspect was ever named. No one was ever charged. 5 children walked into a fire on Christmas Eve, 1945, and the world has never agreed on what happened to them next. That is the Sodder children mystery, and it remains one of the most haunting, unsolved cases in American history. If this case stayed with you, it's supposed to. Drop a comment below with which theory you believe, or if you know something about a case like this from your own region. I read every comment, and your suggestions directly shape what I cover next. If you're new here, this channel covers unsolved disappearances, cold cases, and forgotten mysteries from around the world. Every story is carefully researched and told with the respect it deserves. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.